I'm going to call the May 11th, 2026 meeting of the Barrington Select Board to order. We'll start with a roll call of those who are present, starting with Mr. Sakosha.
Sakosha here.
Capiello here.
Manshire. Hardikoff here.
And Samako is present, and we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us if you so choose.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll move on to agenda review and approval. Does anybody have any modifications to the agenda?
No, I will ask that my vote be recused from the meeting minutes from the last meeting when you get to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So at this time, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Motion to approve.
I'll second. Go ahead.
Okay. All in favor, starting with Mr. Sakosha?
Sakosha.
Capiello, aye.
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 Aye. Okay, we will move on to our first public comment. There are 2 public comment sections in each meeting. If you would like to make a comment, you are welcome to come up here and identify yourself and state your address. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. This is not an opportunity for a back and forth with the board, as we don't know what it is that you're going to bring up. So you may or may not receive any feedback or response. Total public comment is limited to 15 minutes. So if anybody would like to speak, please approach the lectern. If you're online, you're welcome to use the raise hand function. Go ahead. Please state your name and address.
James Rathbun, 1240 Franklin Pierce Highway, part of the C6 in Barrington.
Can you just make sure that light, thanks, Jim.
Want me to do it again?
Please,
Okay.
if it was red.
James Rathbun, 1240 Franklin Pierce Highway, apartment C6 in Barrington. I am with the American Cancer Society Relay for Life for Cancer in Stratford County. And we are doing our Relay for Life at Spalding High School on June 20th. And what we're doing is we're looking for sponsorships. I got one here so you guys can look at. It doesn't have to be the top one. You can do whatever you want. Okay? And I'll leave some business cards with you too. And also, I would like to know if because I've done it before in other towns, if I could put signs up for the relay at like the firehouse and the police station and here at the city hall.
If you leave me your information, I can share you details on where signs can be placed.
Okay.
And that's information I can get to you. Do you want to grab my card? If there isn't one over there, I'll get you a card so you have my information.
Okay.
Terrific.
And I can, if you want to give me this.
Terrific,
That's
please.
The, sponsorship.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds like
And
a great
everybody has, probably have cards for you, so.
Awesome.
Also, I'll tell you, I got 3 minutes, so I got time. I am a cancer survivor. I did survive cancer. I had colon cancer back in 2021. But in the last 8 years, I lost my mom in 18. I lost my brother in 21, my brother in 22, and my sister in 25, just before Thanksgiving. So it's there. Cancer is really bad, and what the statistics are saying that over 6 million people are going to have cancer this year. So if you guys can help with a sponsorship, that'd be perfect. If not, it's okay. But if I can put the signs up.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. If there's anybody else who wants to speak at public comment, please step up or use the raised hand feature online. Seeing none, I will close the first section of public comment. Do you want me? All right.
We're good.
Okay. So next we'll move on to public hearings and invited guests. We'll start with the school board liaison report. Do we have the school board liaison here? I don't.
Do not.
Okay. Then moving on, we have our invited guests for our police swearing-in ceremony. So come on up.
So Chief Joy will be coming to the microphone to introduce our newest officer. And when the time comes, we have Executive Counselor Stephen, who will be performing the ceremonial swearing in.
So there's no confusion this time. We got it right. I'm going to have Officer Jordans come up here. So this is Cameron 2.0. We have a Cameron Barry. We now have a Cameron Jordan. We like to double up on names at the PD. That's what we do, apparently. So Officer Jordan is a local, and we're going to use that relatively speaking. Raised in Newmarket, graduated from the Newmarket High School, went to the University of New Hampshire where he got his degrees and was hired by the University of New Hampshire. Officer Jordan graduated the 185th Police Academy, which was about 4 to 5 years ago, right in that range. So he comes to us with some experience. It's UNH experience. It's a little bit different than what we have, but it's good, solid cop experience. We don't have to teach Officer Jordan how to be an officer. We just have to teach him Barrington, which is easy. He comes to us with pepper ball instructor, defense tactics instructor. He's a taser instructor, which is phenomenal because that gives us an extra taser instructor without costing me almost $1,000. It's great. And he's a field training officer, so it must be kind of odd going through field training while you're already an FTO. He's currently training with Officer Resnicek, who happens to be handling a call right now, so I'm hoping he'll join us before we're done, but he's not here at this point in time. So that is Officer Cameron Jordan in a nutshell. He's from a law enforcement family in the back. His dad, Chief Jordan from Newmarket PD, has joined us, which is fantastic. I love the generational thing. Counselor, can I have you do the honors for me, please? I will give you a copy with his name already in it, sir.
Okay, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, state your name, please, do solemnly swear
I, Cameron Jordan, do solemnly swear
that I will bear faith and true allegiance to the United States of America
that I will bear faith and true allegiance to the United States of America
and to the state of New Hampshire,
and to the state of New Hampshire,
and will support the constitutions thereof,
and will support the constitutions thereof,
so help me God.
so help me God.
I, state your name,
I, Cameron Jordan,
do solemnly and sincerely swear and affirm
do solemnly and sincerely swear and affirm
that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all duties incumbent upon me,
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge
all duties incumbent upon
as a police officer of Barrington, New Hampshire,
as a police officer of Barrington, New Hampshire,
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeable to the rules and regulations
agreeable to the rules and regulations
of the constitutions of the laws of New Hampshire, so help me God.
of the Constitution, of the laws,
Of the Constitution and the laws of New Hampshire,
of the Constitution of the laws of New Hampshire,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And at this point in time, I'm going to invite his wife Kylie up. Stab/pin. This was a lot safer in the days when we wore our vests under our shirts. As always, we thank you all for the public.
All right, thank you. That was fantastic. Okay, next we'll move on to our invited guests in our elected leaders series. And we will start with Executive Counselor John Stephen. And you're welcome to come up and just make sure the light is green on your microphone.
Thank you. Do you want me to give an opening statement? I'm here as an invited guest, but if you want, I'd like to say a few words about the council and to the town. And appreciate your, obviously, you're reaching out to me, and I like to meet with the town councils in all the towns that I represent. But I remember when we were here a while back, there was an issue in the middle school for safety and sign location and speed limit, and DOT, to give them credit, I asked Commissioner Cass at the time to be very mindful of the safety issues and meet with the town and meet with the chief. And I had John O'Neill here, who I spoke to earlier today, who came and did some work with the chief, and we're able to put some restrictions in terms of speed limit signage in the area during the school hours. I actually went out there myself to the Route 9 area and saw some of the new development and was concerned about some of the youth that could be crossing the road. And so, and then I actually watched one day when I saw the backup and in terms of the traffic. So there was an issue, and I really impressed upon DOT to come out here and help the town, and they did. So I want to give them credit. And I know there's still some issues, and they did mention Commissioner Cass left and Commissioner Dave Rodriguez is now the commissioner. And he mentioned that the town would be able to put up, certain flashing lights at their cost, but to work with DOT. He has not heard back. So he's interested to know if there's anything else you want there to work with him. And in terms of the Route 9 entrance, there's also three projects, I think 3 or 4 projects. I have all the numbers that are in the state 10-year highway plan. And we started our process out at the council. And the way the process starts is the council has public hearings throughout the state. I think we did 23 public hearings. And we, the 5 councilors, then come up with and work with DOT, and we determine what the 10-year highway plan looks like when it starts in the legislature. So we agreed, and I worked real hard to make sure the Barrington, and we worked with Connor, that the projects that this town wanted and it was expected in that plan stayed in that plan. There's a potential somewhere it's projected around $400 million deficit. There's discussions of toll increases to pay for some of those shortfalls, but there were a number of projects that were on the chopping block, including 2 in my area of Manchester where I live, Route 6 and 7, exit 6 and 7, and exit 1 in Concord. Large projects that are really important to the state. And I'm understanding the legislature through the process now is taking those projects out because of the funding. And I still continue to work hard to make sure that we're prioritizing projects appropriately at DOT because there are some real safety issues in those projects. But I can tell you the good news is Barrington's projects have all stayed in the 10-year plan. None have been reduced or eliminated. There's a couple there's a pedestrian crossing project. There's also another one where there's, I think, going to be there's ADA compliant lights or crossing on Route 9 and 125. And there's a couple other projects, but they're there. And, Connor's been great to work with. And I'm here to always listen and to hear and to make sure that I also am the voice of your town for that 10-year plan. And there are other issues that we can talk about tonight that involve some grant funding that I want to make sure the town's taking advantage of. But your town is very, very savvy and very understands a lot of the DES, water, PFAS. There's also issues involving diesel fuel vehicles that can be replaced at the federal dollars. And there's some other issues involving opioid funds and other things that I can also help you with and be a bridge to the agencies that disperse those funds, and always look out for your best interests. And so I'm here to answer any questions. I know you had some input or some questions you wanted to ask. Does that help?
Super helpful. And I'll say your advocacy specifically with the school zone signs and the 10-year plan has been tremendous, because having, we can do our part locally to raise the alarm and encourage, select board members and even residents to speak up and get involved. And that only goes so far in the general course of business. And we could spend an hour talking about, political advocacy and the voice of an individual, but to know that we have our elected leaders that we can call on and talk about, whether it's legislation or projects or, everything to do with state government, really helps. And having the established school zone was a big win, and keeping the projects in the 10-year plan also a big win. Obviously, the deficit and how DOT is operationally kind of kicking those projects farther and farther down the road is another topic that, is worth talking about sometime. But the advocacy and looking out for Barrington is important and recognized. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Tracy.
So recently, I think this week, there was a tabling of a $1.2 million funding mechanism for Granite Steps for Quality for childcare.
Yes.
Where do we anticipate that going? I am a grandmother of 5 under 5. Childcare is extremely important here in the Barrington community. It's been part of our discussion and strategic planning for this town. If we don't have quality childcare, we are having a huge impact on children at their most impactful learning stages.
So this is a great question. I don't know if I have enough time to go through all the issues in my own mind. You know, when I was commissioner of HHS, I was the first commissioner that started License Plus, we called it, because quality in childcare means a lot to me as well. However, I met with a number of childcare agencies, and I continue to see professional development and training contracts sent to the Governing Council. And I have asked my constituents who, and some of them come through Barrington as well, you have one down the road here, that work with Early Learning New Hampshire. And I try to use as a barometer Early Learning New Hampshire's surveys and what they're hearing, because childcare is such an important thing for many people. In fact, my daughter is a school teacher in Hampton, and the cost of infant care is outrageous, and people can't work because they can't afford childcare. We have to do a lot more in this state. There's no question. But, you know, I was one of the councilmen, and I continue to feel very concerned about where DHHS is spending their dollars on childcare. And I'm going to tell you that I raised the issue with the commissioner because there's $7.5 million in each of the budget years. That's $15 million that's supposed to be allocated to the state childcare agencies for workforce grants. That is to help either bonuses, salary bonuses, or to help for recruitment and retention of the workforce, which is critical. The Quality Steps program is not being utilized by the vast majority of childcare places in this state. It's voluntary. It's still, the uptick is not there the way it should be. I don't know the reasons why. But what I hear all the time from the childcare proprietors is we need help with our workforce. So what I said to DHHS is before I as a counselor support any more quality or training dollars, I want to see a commitment of dollars given to the childcare facilities in terms of workforce grants. I have yet to see that. That $7.5 million that was in the budget, the governor's budget went over and basically had I believe it was reduced because it was general funds. And then in the end, the legislature used TANF reserve dollars. Those are all federal dollars. So still $15 million. And this, as we sit here today, not one dime of that $7.5 million has been utilized and given to those childcare facilities. Until I see steps that move forward on workforce grants and help in that area, I am not going to support any further dollars for training and professional development, especially to a program that's not utilized by the vast majority of childcare organizations in this state. That's my position as a counselor through numerous conversations I've had with childcare providers. And I continue to ask them, what is the #1 priority? And it is workforce grants. I hope that helps answer your question.
That's kind of a follow-on. Why isn't that money being utilized?
The department has sent us an email that they had correspondence with the Federal Administration of Children and Families. The email does not say that TANF reserve dollars cannot be used. The issue really comes down to the state is obviously looking to reduce their general fund component. So they want to use as many federal dollars as possible. So what the legislature, both the Senate and the House, said in the committee of conference, I believe, to the department was, we're going to put a line item in the budget that's going to ask for TANF reserves, provided that the federal government were to approve it. The letter that I received did not say, no, you can't use these dollars for TANF, for child care bonus. It said, you have to make sure you administer these dollars according to a ratio of a certain percentage that goes to the child care development grant funds. And the department is saying that they've used up to that 30% limit. And there's been no attempt to get a waiver. There's been no attempt to sit down with the administration, to actually work with the federal administration. And when I was a commissioner, I would be speaking to the secretary. I wouldn't be using an email that's given by a middle manager and say to the House and the Senate in New Hampshire that we can't use these dollars because this particular middle manager bureaucrat said we can't, and they didn't say they can't, said we only can use a certain amount. Again, nobody has asked for a waiver. And until that happens, I want to see that. And plus, there are other funds that could be used to help on workforce grants. This particular program is 1.2 million, I think. But Madam Vice Chair, I want you to understand that this program is still in existence. This contract is till 2028. All these funds were $1.2 million to add to up to $3.5 million now for the program. So it wasn't like we were cutting the program itself, and that needs to be told to anyone that thinks we cut. There's nothing that was cut. We just didn't use. So why can't the department go back and use at least $500,000 a year for the next 3 years to even give some relief to childcare workers or childcare proprietors that need help with the workforce? Again, I'm only 1 out of 5 votes, but that's one of the reasons that issue is tabled, and we're going to see what DHS has to say at the next meeting on the 20th.
Thank you for your advocacy.
Yeah, thank you for the explanation, because I had seen that as well. I do think it's been maybe not represented as clearly as it could be. I do have a question for you. So, at home here in Barrington, one of the hottest topics of discussion when it comes to people coming to this board is property taxes. And, finances are your bread and butter as an executive counselor. We have all of these legal cases about inadequate funding for education. And here in Barrington, our school budget makes up more than 70% of the property taxes that we take. We're seeing less and less funding coming from the state. We're seeing the state pot of money for education being spread thinner through the use of EFAs and spreading the funds around, which puts a bigger and bigger burden while we're at the same time not meeting the requirements that have been set out in those legal cases. What do you see as the solution? Because we're struggling with that. This year, our school's budget did not pass. We have a default school budget this year.
I'm not on the policy side.
Right,
So
I understand, but
my issue is making sure the judges that we appoint to the Supreme Court adhere to the Constitution, follow the Constitution, and will make decisions that are appropriate based upon the facts of a case. That's our role as a council. Now, you mentioned earlier that we are a fiscal watchdog for the state because every contract has to come to us. If I ever saw an EFA contract as a counselor, I would do what I always do, is really scrutinize to make sure that the spending is fiscally responsible and that there are outcomes and that there are, like you said, achieved outcomes that reduce long run spending or help towns. And these are benchmark questions I always ask in my are we helping the towns in everything we do? But we don't. Education funding issue is a policy matter. Those are all matters that the state, how the Senate and the legislature and the governor work on.
I understand that, but you do still have an impact on the flow of funds. So
I have
it's
an
good to
impact
hear
on the contracts
Right,
that
so
come
it's,
from the budget.
you
Yeah,
know-
and I do my best to make sure that, I vote no a lot on spending that I think is inappropriate so I could help local governments with property tax relief.
Okay.
Because if our budget's growing on the general fund side to an unsustainable amount, that's going to impact the property tax. It's going to impact the towns. And I have probably voted against over $100 million in contracts, more than that probably. I don't know the amount. And sometimes it's a 3-2 vote and I'm not successful. Sometimes we are. But I always am looking out for the taxpayers, always.
Okay, appreciate that. Anybody else?
Does your group have any impact on the school voucher program?
No.
Absolutely zero, none?
I mean, I'm trying to think while the question came up, is there a contract we've seen? Most of the education funding contracts we get from the department all involve substantial dollars that go to the local communities through, technology. I mean, we've spent millions of dollars to help the towns with technology that they don't have to spend. Those contracts come through us. I have voted for all of them. Those contracts that help reduce property taxes, I have voted for because they come to us. There was one, it was a really important one. I'll just give you an example. Like it was a tutor program, and I don't know the exact name, but it was a vendor. It was about $1.5 million to continue online tutoring for youth that need it in the schools. And I asked the question, what if we don't fund this? What happens to this program in the town? Well, the towns would have to pick it up. Constantly, there are contracts we're voting for that come from the Department of Education that are federal dollars that are flowing through to assist the towns with numerous education expenses. And again, if anything comes up that you feel is really important, like the childcare issue, if you feel it's important before that contract is heard and you want to get in touch with me, I mean, Connor knows how to get a hold of me. You can express your opinion and point and reach out to me at any time. I mean, I went on the road myself to actually go visit in that particular case when I saw that contract, childcare proprietors that I know, and also speak with Early Learning New Hampshire, Jackie Cowell, who I really pay a lot of attention to. And then I met with Muriel Allard, who owns the largest childcare facility in the district, Alphabets. And, you know, at the end of the day, I asked one simple question. I had my notes, and it was like, she mentioned, this is not the best use of these dollars. And I just, again, my wife, by the way, has, her sister, Patty, has been for 26 years a childcare worker at Educare. And my daughter, who's an elementary teacher in Hampton today, started in the childcare teaching side. And
Have you met with any of the public childcare centers, though? I often find it is very, very different privatized environments of any kind, where funding tends to be, the revenue is higher because the cost in certain communities can be charged at a higher rate. Have you met with any of the public centers where the children are coming from lower income levels, the parents are coming from lower income levels, and quite potentially the workers are coming from communities with lower income levels? It is one thing to have someone with a master's degree in Hampton, New Hampshire that, you know, is in a private childcare center and probably isn't struggling to find additional education to be the best early childhood educator they could be. May be different than a community that does not have that type of wealth or personnel available to them. And so the exposure that I'm seeing, I'll use Rochester as an example. I belong to the Rotary Club there. That community will struggle to keep those early childhood educators educated and growing and learning. So I appreciate that you've reached out to a group of childcare centers. I think it's important that the entire spectrum be represented.
yeah, and again, Early Learning New Hampshire represents all of them. So I rely on them for a lot of my decision-making, but I'll make sure I reach out to a few more. Again, I think it's important. My, you know, my wife's sister's, the facility, the scholarships that they use, they have low income, numerous low income. And her point about the pyramid model, when I shared that with her, the training, she said, I do this online for free. I don't need to have that type of training. I've been here 28 years, and we have just the effective special needs individuals, how to treat children. We have an online program we use for free. You know, I don't know why we're spending $500,000 a year to educate and to train when we have community colleges, New Hampshire Technical College, when we have other areas that can actually be used to be the breed, I mean, to really be the bridge to bring the workforce to us too. So I'm also very supportive of community college and those dollars going to our state institutions as well. So I've done a lot of discussion with child care facilities. I want to do everything we can at the council. I know the governor's working on it. to help that industry. It's so much in need, and low-income folks need to work as well. And how can you help them with work? Scholarship programs. How can you keep the businesses afloat? The stipends for the workers. And I will tell you, there's one facility down the road here that is in Rochester as well, I believe, Barrington, Somersworth. There are 4 locations. And I'm meeting next week with them because DHHS is now trying to close their door. And there's an issue of licensing, and I don't know what it is, but they reached out to me, and I'm going to do everything I can to help that facility stay afloat. But I don't know what the reason is, but they're in dire need of help right now. That's 300 kids, they told me, in Barrington, Somersworth, and one other town.
Okay, well, I appreciate you continuing to investigate it and ensuring that the workforce that are working with young children are trained appropriately.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the board? No? All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Connor, and I want to thank your town for being engaged in the CPR challenge, the New Hampshire CPR challenge. So I don't know if you all know, but I did suffer a heart attack in November. I made a point my life was saved by a bystander that saw me fall after I was jogging. And I don't remember the day, but I run 2 miles a day for 25 years, 5 days a week. I felt I was in great condition. I didn't know I had issues of blockage, and this is more genetic, but you never know. Could happen to anyone. And there was a bystander that just got trained on certified CPR next door, saw me and ran over and administered CPR. And the one thing when I came back and I talked to the governor, we wanted to do something hands compression only, hands only CPR training for the public. My goal was to really have members of the public be able to be trained by the fire or police or someone. And so we started a program called CPR Challenge New Hampshire. And next week is EMS week. And your school system, thanks to some of your folks that were leading the effort, signed up to train some of the kids and the parents at night. It's going to be publicized by MUR. You'll be on the list. And so I encourage you, if you know anyone that might be, bless you, interested in that, when it's meant, it'll be identified publicly. So thank you to the town of Barrington for participating in that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
And moving on to our next, in our invited guests in our elected leader series, we have Senator David Waters.
And he did provide a couple of documents, updated risk
Sorry,
rule
folks.
bill.
Put
and
the
list-
word with my friend.
No problem. Welcome.
Well, thank you. It's nice to see everybody, and I must say Barrington is just looking great. It really is. Driving up, thinking about the new library, this building, the housing that's going on. It's really something, and I see the strategic plan and the town center planning committee, so a lot of good things happening here. So I'll just say a couple words to get going, and I know that Connor had some questions. He put to me in an email, so I have some materials to answer those in particular. But just to say, Senator David Waters, District 4, of course, includes Barrington, but Dover, Somersworth, and Bedford as well. And I guess I'm in my 7th term representing you all, and it's been just such a privilege to do so. Been around long enough in the Senate that I'm the 2nd most senior person there, and that means that you get punished with some extra work. So I'm on Finance Committee now, doing the budget, and I'm also on Energy and Natural Resources, which does all things energy, obviously, but everything fish and game, agriculture, other water quality, everything related to DES on that committee. And I'm on Capital Budget that does the expenditures for state investments in buildings and schools and other things as well. I did bring along a list of my bills, and I will say just a couple of highlights there, and then get into some of the bigger issues that I think are facing us in the legislature. And particularly, I think we are, really have, over a number of years, built up some pressures that have resulted in severe underfunding of what's coming to the school system and to the municipalities, to the roads, and to other things. And I really think we have to change the way we're doing business, because the effect is what it's doing to property taxes. And you hear it every day, I'm sure. And I really hope we can have some good plans to do some things about that. Because transportation has been mentioned, I am the sponsor of Senate Bill 627, which would raise the tolls on out-of-state drivers only. New Hampshire drivers would see no increase, and they could get a free transponder if they're one of the 15% of New Hampshire people who don't have one. This is what the other states do to us. It would allow us to fund $400 million of projects that the regional planning committees put forward that were taken out of the 10-year plan. There's a lot of politics around that. There's basically just one person in the state who's opposed to this. And so we're trying to find ways to get that done. I just think that, for me, my years on transportation, getting good, safe, and efficient roads is about our economy. And it's about getting actually more funding to municipalities, because everything that we increase in those revenues, there's a percentage that is peeled off for your local roads and bridges. I never thought this is political, and it's become that because of one person. And we're going to try again on Thursday. I hope to find another way to get that done, but I just wanted to mention that as well. I've always done a lot of work on career and technical education. I have a couple of bills to try to extend career and technical education up in the North Country, but particularly by creating a new model, which could be statewide, where there could be shared facilities between career and technical education and the community college system of New Hampshire. And I think there's a great synergy there, so that students in high school know there's a clear path for them through high school and into the community college system, into a good paying job. I have another bill that is going to set the stage for increasing the amount of tuition and transportation, so that for CTEs, so the community like Barrington would have a realistic and full reimbursement of the expenses that are upon the community, because you're sending some of your students to CTE centers in different places. I do a lot of work on energy policy, in particular renewable energy and energy generation, and you name it. And a couple of little things. I think we'll be the fourth state to authorize portable solar, so that people who rent or people who can't afford to put a full system on their house can get a relatively inexpensive portable solar devices, and might even get a considerable part of their energy needs taken care of through that means. And that bill has passed, and it's on the way to the governor's desk. I've also made some real progress on legislation to increase the possibility of net metering for municipal projects, to give a 20-year period for the financing of it, which makes things work. And also, we were able, in a compromise last week with the House, to increase the size of projects up to 250 kilowatts from 100. And that really gets us more towards the sweet spot of getting the investment in the kind of projects that municipalities can do to cover your own energy costs. Working on a lot of other things. I've got legislation creating microgrids, on port electrification, on looking at cybersecurity for water systems and for electrical systems, which I think we're under increasing threat with mystery chips appearing in almost everything that we purchase from overseas in our equipment, and needing to have that kind of security. So I've been trying to kind of look forward to things. We're talking about small modular reactors. We're talking about other things. On the housing side, we were not able to get any money in the budget particularly for housing, which was a real surprise, because it was a top priority, that and childcare of the governor. But there was a kind of a squabble between the governor and legislative leadership, and it turned out that she didn't get any of her priorities particularly. But we are managing to do something, I think, around those things. I have tried to kind of really have a targeted focus. I have Senate Bill 608, which I think is really helpful legislation for caregivers. It says if you're a caregiver, not only for certain new categories of neurodivergent children, but also if you're a grandparent taking care of your grandchildren, that you could have them qualify for childcare. And also, there is a federal statute that says that if you're going to qualify for these programs, you have to be working. If you're telling grandparents who are 70, 75, or 80 who are taking care of little grandchildren, they're going to go back to work, that's a non-starter. So the legislation will ask the federal government for the waiver that we need, and also the waivers that we need to provide financial support, financial training, mental health support for people who are caregivers. So I'm glad for that. On the housing side, I have two bills that are going to help our military get some housing, and I think there'll be some good spillover for residents of Barrington and the other areas around here. When I met with members of our National Guard, we have that first fleet of KC-146A tankers, first one in the country. You see any large mission that the Air Force is on over the Atlantic or over the Pacific, and it's our National Guard that's fueling those planes. And I was talking with the National Guards people and asked them where they lived, and they're living an hour and a half away. They can't afford housing. People from around the country, they want to come here and serve because we have those tankers, but they can't afford the housing here. And then getting people to sign up again. It's not just the National Guard, but it's the 700 or so active military that we have. So what I've done is a bill that would have us look at the possibility of creating housing at the Great Bay Community College campus. It'd be a joint project between the National Guard and Great Bay Community College. It could be a dual purpose dormitory and residence, not only for students and staff, because they're having trouble getting housing for them, but also for the National Guard. And then the other bill allows, it just looks kind of dull. It says allows leasing. But what that will do for the National Guard is they have properties in Pembroke and have properties in Center Stratford where they could have major housing projects, rehabilitate some barracks up in Stratford, but also create multifamily apartments and other kinds of housing over at their 250 acres in Pembroke. I know a lot of military and also a lot of people at the shipyard live in Barrington. And this housing could also be for the sailors who are stationed, who serve on a boat that's in the shipyard, and they still live locally, and they just can't find places to live, and this might be something for them as well. So let me pause on that, and I do a lot of bills. If you have other questions about it, I'll be glad to answer. And I did want to get to a couple of the questions that Connor sent me. Health trusts are much in the concern about what we're going to do about the health trusts, and I provided copies with what I thought was almost the final version. We have to vote on it tomorrow. Senator Gray has done really extraordinary work with the trusts, with HHS, with the Secretary of State's office, and with the insurance department to figure out what kind of regulatory system we should have, because the trust nearly went bankrupt last year and the assessments came out, and the skyrocketing costs for municipalities is just not sustainable. So just to give the short version of this is what we've created is a program where the insurance department will take on the regulation of these trusts should they choose to move over there. And I think they all will. And we've set up a regulatory system which requires reserve amounts, requires capitalization, much more transparency, and means that there must be an understanding between the community. They can't just drop an assessment on you. There has to be an agreement, if that becomes necessary, how that would be handled, and just a lot of other infinite detail in here. But I think it has really kind of cracked the nut, because we had a kind of a conflict between the Insurance Department, Secretary of State, who should run these, and I think we found a successful path forward. The health trusts are pretty happy with the version we've come up with. A lot of talk with the House. There are some changes that last minute from the Insurance Department, and a couple of other things on transparency while protecting patient information. And so the the latest version that I got, and I just checked, and I do have a final version that we're going to vote on tomorrow, and I will share it with you, Connor, when we vote on it. But I think we actually might get there. This has been a year and a half and great problems for the trust, but I think we have a path forward on those. So I want to pause there and see if you have any questions about that one, and there's a bunch of other things I know you're interested in too.
By changing the regulatory environment for the health trust, will any potential patient impact occur? In other words, if there's state regulation, is there any unintended consequence where people will then be limited in the services that would be available to them, specifically women's health?
I would think not, because the regulation you'll see is around how they capitalize, how they have their reserves, how their boards are composed, and all these kinds of regulatory issues. In terms of the actual contracts that the municipalities make with these, that does not change. That's you buy insurance through these trusts, and that's the policy you negotiate. We were very concerned about the possibility, if they declared an emergency or something, that they could break union contracts and break other kinds of contracts. We didn't want that to happen. So I think there's safeguards here, and this is a much stricter regulatory regime. But they better be willing to decide they want to accept this, because I think we simply must avoid what has happened before and leaving communities in the lurch. And the cost escalation is just mind-boggling. Dover, Rochester, everywhere. What it's done to your budgets is really, we just can't let that happen.
Senator Wonders, if this should go through, what kind of impact would that have on costs of insurance for next year?
Well, what I hope, they are rebuilding their reserves. And what I hope it would mean is that we would not see a great escalation in the costs. If the reserves are suitably built, if they follow the system here, I think they'll be much more able to anticipate. Now,
So in 1 year, do you anticipate them having the reserves?
Pardon?
In 1 year, do you anticipate them having the reserves built up, or?
They actually, over the last year and a half, I don't have it with me, we wrote a report on that, and they have made substantial progress. They have now, what's uncontrollable is, insurance, medical costs are going up. And, sometimes it can take just 1 or 2 employees who suddenly have an extremely expensive cost. And, they saw that coming. What they got themselves in trouble is to come out of COVID. And there was suddenly an enormous need for healthcare that had been delayed. And I think, my opinion, rather foolishly, the Secretary of State insisted on a great deal of the reserves being returned to the municipalities, rather than holding them as a kind of a hedge against that kind of extreme event. And I mean, there was particular circumstances that contributed to the escalations of costs, and I hope this will at least make things more predictable and not have the sudden shocks to the system. But
So I've followed this topic very closely, and an area of significant interest for me has been the Secretary of State's office regulation and the way they have conducted themselves through the legislation. So we could go back as far as the forcing to give back reserves when the health trust specifically, but the risk pools were saying, hey, gosh, these claims are going to come. But even more recently than that, during the last legislative cycle, the Secretary of State's office used public funds, state of New Hampshire government public funds, hiring actuaries and other professionals from across the country to essentially convince legislators in Concord that health trust was mismanaged, going bankrupt, and just in terrible shape as a risk pool. And School Care, which as an organization had aligned itself with the Secretary of State's office's legislative position And mum was the word on school care. School care is on firm footing. School care is managed well. School care is managed effectively. School care is the health risk pool, which issued $30 million in surprise assessments. Not because they were well run and on firm footing, because they were in a tumultuous situation. And it's not surprising in hindsight that they were supportive of the Secretary of State's office's legislative position, because that position, if passed last year, would have been, those assessments would have been required by state regulation in the updated 5B and not something that they had to do to save a sinking ship. And so I don't think that the very smart people that the Secretary of State's office hired and school care were not unaware that that legislation would save them. But if we are to trust a regulator to do what's in the best interest of our dollars and the regulation of a system like risk pools, which needs to be regulated, we need to trust that that's objective. We need to trust that they're not going to hide from the financial challenges of a risk pool, which has aligned itself with the Secretary of State's office's political position, and use our tax dollars to attack the other risk pool, which has not needed to issue assessments and has been building gradually from the reserves which the Secretary of State's office forced them to deplete. So that in and of itself is concerning. And I say this, in your role as a senator, the House and the Senate appoint the Secretary of State, and there's a level of responsibility to make sure that the work done on our behalf is done objectively and money is spent appropriately. Fast forward, these $30 million of assessments, of which the Barrington School District, which is not overseen by this body, paid $400 and some odd thousand unexpectedly to school care. There was one organization of school care that didn't pay, and that's the City of Dover. And the City of Dover sued school care and said, this is breach of contract, you can't do this. Their lawsuit, if you read it, has nothing to do with the regulations of 5B, right? Who intervened? The Secretary of State's office. Secretary of State's office used our dollars to intervene in that court case and say the court system, the state of New Hampshire should dismiss these claims altogether because we are 5B and 5B regulates risk pools, and there couldn't possibly be any other provision of law that applies to this situation than 5B. Which is crazy because there's so many components of providing health insurance and risk pools other than 5B, which is the basis for the claims from the City of Dover. Why are we spending our money through the Secretary of State's office intervening in their challenge of school care? And so this is a big deal. And certainly the House and the Senate have been doing a lot of really good work over the last year and a half to objectively find the appropriate balance. And I haven't seen the latest version of the legislation. I've followed the negotiations of the House bill and the Senate bill closely. But in my opinion, it can't end at the adoption of new regulations. There's a big problem in how we can trust a regulator that has handled this situation, in my opinion, very questionably. And I've talked to the Secretary of State's office. I've asked a lot of challenging questions about this circumstance. And there are too many situations that cause you to scratch your head to believe that there's a problem here, a bigger picture problem with how this has transacted. New Hampshire Interlocal Trust. I mean, talked about them going belly up and completely dissolving, right? The Secretary of State's office, mum was the word about the sustainability of New Hampshire Interlocal Trust, but their paid actuaries from across the country were, before your committee even, attacking Health Trust and talking about how terrible Health Trust was and how terribly managed they were and how they were on the brink of disaster, when their only other two risk pools were the ones that were actually under the most challenging circumstances. So I'm really concerned about that problem. I'm interested in your perspective because I know that you followed it closely over the last year and a half also.
Well, I mean, I hear you, and this has been front and center for us. I from the get-go, thought that we ought to move these over to the insurance department. I would say that when we started this a year ago, February, that the sense of Senate Finance was, no, it should stay in the Secretary of State's office. And I was there for the War of the Actuaries. In our committee over many, many days. And do note that now the Senate position in this bill is to move to the insurance department. So make of that what you will. Certainly I think that it's not unreasonable to think that if Dover's suit is successful, that you all who ended up paying might be able to claw that back. So we shall see.
Okay.
But immediately, I really hope that this gets us where we need to be. And I think it reflects, the shift came when we started to work pretty much primarily with the insurance department. And that's what ended up producing a bill that we think can work, and the health trusts school trusts seem to think can work as well. So we don't know until we get there as to whether this will work. But as you look at Connor, when you go through this, I think you'll see there's a whole lot of emphasis on transparency.
Right.
That, is a result of those conversations about which actuaries and who to believe and what's going on with this. And it's pretty rigorous and pretty tight, I think, going through it. But,
Great. I appreciate that.
I just want to make a comment, and this is not for your benefit or for the benefit of those here, but it's for those in the room, those online, and those who may watch this later, because this may sound very tangential from an outside perspective. Risk pools, health trust, and school care, those are how we provide health insurance for town employees and employees of the school. So that cost is a big problem, and that comes straight out of tax dollars. And these assessments that come out of the blue due to possible mismanagement can have a big impact on that. So while this may sound odd to be discussed here, these have a real world impact on us and on you. So that's why getting this system fixed is so important. I just wanted to clarify that because we know what you're talking about, but I want to make sure anybody who's watching this meeting that wants to understand what's going on knows what that's for.
thank you.
Questions?
Did you have something?
Yeah, so with schools impacting, towns and their budget, we have a default budget this year. But typically, each year the school budgets go up and never stay kind of close. But even with declining numbers in recent years, how do you plan on helping towns like Barrington, navigate the heavy expense of the schools, how it keeps going up each year, 73% of our tax rate?
Well, I will look back to the last time. I'm just going to be not partisan per se, but just to note that when the last time a budget was written by the Democrats, there was much more funding for schools. And since that time, we've seen really an almost limitless, as it will turn out, amount of money that's going to education freedom accounts. And conceptually, I understand education freedom accounts, and I understand, as it was first presented, and there, it's a program. I get that. I understand why people want it, and so on and so forth. But we never should have robbed Peter to pay Paul, and that is what we're doing on that. And then also, basically, the attack on public education in general has meant, I think, a consistent underfunding and a failure to respond at all to the Supreme Court decision. And I really think that we can find ways to provide additional revenues to municipalities for schools. I really think there are ways to do that without, creating new taxes or this or that. I think it's a question of priorities on that. Transportation expenses, special education. We actually do have a bill we're going to finish up on this week that's going to change a little bit of the formula in special education. I think that might help, but we are underfunding special education, and that's a very, very fast growing part of the budget. And then transportation for special education students. So I think there's a lot we can do. I fear that the budgeting we have done has kicked the can down the road and failed. I mean, we have probably hundreds of millions of dollars of adequacy we should be paying. Price tag on the Youth Development Center might be $1.5 billion. And we are just trying to, and I don't want to use extreme word like cover up, but sometimes I don't know what else to say about it. We have 1,700 children who are abused over there, and now we are refusing to even provide, adequate, we're supposed to put $75 million a year into a fund so that we could not go to court. We've got a court case that is waiting on appeal. It's $38 million for one case. We've settled one for $10 million. There's others for, $3 or $4 million. And, the settlement, if we do the fund, would, maybe average $500,000. What are we doing? And this is 60 to 70 years this was going on. And I just see that as, it's a budget time bomb, but it's also a moral time bomb. I am really, really very, very deeply disturbed that the state is not owning up to this. When I offer an apology on the Senate floor for what had happened to those children, the failure of the legislature for decades to even ask the question, are the kids all right? I was the first elected official in this state to offer any kind of apology. And to me, that's appalling. So these are budgetary issues, but I think they're also social and moral issues. Why aren't we funding our schools? Why aren't we funding the university system? Why aren't we, funding and taking care of kids? Why aren't we providing childcare? Why aren't we providing housing? This is what makes communities, it's what we're supposed to do as a government. That's what government is for. And I really worry about it. And I'm on finance. I'm right there in the middle of it. I see this, and there are other ways we can do things, and I hope that we will. So, I'm going off on this, but I really, really care about it. What else am I up there but to do than to serve the people and make sure communities like Barrington have the resources that they need? And what's more important than children, families, having some housing, having some good employment, having some good transportation? It's not rocket science. It really isn't partisan either. That's what government's supposed to do. And we got some work to do. So
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
and Connor, I'll tell you about the other one you asked about. 1064.
Yeah, municipal immunity.
Yeah.
Negligence.
So that was going to be interim studied. It got pulled off. That vote got overturned, and it was voted off to pass. So that was the only way we could get one more week of time. It's going to finance. We're going to have it in finance tomorrow. That's why that was done. As it is, it will not pass. Some folks asked for one more week to see if they could come up with something. If they have, they've got to bring it to us in finance tomorrow. I'm kind of skeptical as to whether it'll happen, but I hope this will go away.
Just a brief primer. So there's a real tragedy that happened in Exeter to a representative's son, I believe, a representative's son. And that was the kind of the prime motivation for this, basically an elimination of any municipal immunity for negligence, and also an increase to the cap on payouts, essentially, for municipalities. And there are parts of it that make sense, right, for protecting people's interests and making sure the government is doing right by people. The biggest concern that I see with this is that a smaller community is going to really be challenged to provide any kind of creative level of service to their residents for fear of getting it perfectly right. The cities and the large organizations with all the resources, they have the ability to think everything through from beginning to end and dot every I and cross every T and make sure that it's perfect. But when the rec department wants to have use the field and bring out and do a sunrise yoga, and they would have to worry about a potential suit because there was, something left on a tent stake that was accidentally left on the field from summer camp that, didn't, what wasn't found until it was hit by a lawnmower, and now it's in a place that somebody didn't anticipate. There's the concerns that municipalities aren't faced with being creative and providing services. Especially smaller communities become problematic. That's not even to say how Primex, as our property and liability risk pool, would have to raise premiums in order to cover this, I don't want to say unlimited, but this unlimited new risk of liability that municipalities would have to pay up for. And that would also force them to change their coverage levels in ways, it was a big doing in Barrington when Primex said they could no longer provide insurance for an inflatable water slide for summer camp. Like, that was a big deal for the community. How, Primex had to decide it's too risky. We paid too many claims and this is a problem. We can't do this anymore. If this, as it's written now, if this were to be put into law, Primex would be having to make a lot more difficult decisions on what they could provide levels of coverage for or not. And if they're not going to provide a level of coverage for it, we're not going to do it, right. Which impacts services, and it's a challenge. So I'm glad to hear that folks are going to work on it for another week. Certainly, I think time would be helpful, but the current version would be challenging.
Yeah, I'll find out tomorrow.
Great.
Because if there's going to be something, it's going to be in finance tomorrow, and I'll be there, so I'll let you know. Okay.
I appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, and call anytime.
Thank you so much.
Awfully good to see you all. Yep.
You're welcome to stay through the rest.
This time of year, I'm
Yeah.
surprised we got him.
You need another meeting.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next invited guest, Holly Decker, regarding an archaeological assessment on Oak Hill and Meeting House Road. Either
Wherever
one.
you're comfortable.
Yes, it came that way.
So thank you, Administrator McViver and Select Board, for allowing me to come before you.
Can you just make sure that your light is green? There's a button.
Good.
We're good?
It's good, okay. I am Holly Decker. I'm here with my husband, Bruce Decker. We have been residents of Barrington since 1982. Excuse me. I believe you have information about the location of the site and the proposed archaeological work. And I know some of you notes state that my husband and I are members of the First Congregational Church. I'm also the church historian. Some of you may have known me for organizing the cemetery tour for Barrington's 300th anniversary. My husband Bruce and I are also members of the Barrington Historical Society. I first became interested in this project as I help research and plan activities for the Congregational Church's 250th anniversary in 2005. I was intrigued by the marker that was at the place of the former meeting house that had been put there in 1922, which was Barrington's 200th anniversary. Just as a note here, Dover did a similar archaeological project for their 400th anniversary at the First Parish original meeting site. In your notes should be a link to that lecture. Over the last couple of years, I've been trying to figure out how to go about such a project. Recently, I was able to connect with Alexandria Martin from UNH. She recommended contacting Jacob Tumelaire of Independent Archaeological Consulting, LLC. The company's been around since 1990. In 2020, Jacob became the director and principal investigator, having previously been an employee. Jacob thought that if I was certain that the meeting house had been at that location, it would make the most sense to do a phase 1B survey, which involves digging 10 small test pits at the site. The quote for the work, which includes lab work, field work, reports, artifact curation, according to New Hampshire Division of Historical Resource Guidelines, was $5,055. Possibly slightly lower if the town wants to take possessions of the artifacts, but I was also wondering if there are any artifacts, you might choose to turn them over to the Historical Society for display or for keeping. The meeting house, as it was jointly used by the church and the town. The church used it for worship, the town conducted town business. This is how most towns in that time period would utilize the building. The meeting house was either built or moved around 1755. It's a little bit unclear. There was an original site which was at the corner of Route 9 and Ramsdale Lane, but it proved too inconvenient. I found one that it gave permission to haul the meeting house to the new site, but there seems to be, whether it was ever finished or used, so I don't know if they were collecting wood and whatever they needed and then move that, or they had like the frame of it up and move that, but I can't really see that it was used. It continued to be used by the church into 1840 when the original part of the current church was built. The town continued to use it until 1854 when it's built its new townhouse. And then the meeting house was taken down and sold at lumber. I've been told that there was some house that has a fair amount or did have a fair amount of the meeting house in it, but I haven't confirmed that. Just as a fun note, since it's near the country's 250th anniversary of signing the Declaration of Independence, most likely, I don't have absolute proof, the association test, which was where the men in the community would sign to basically said they would support the American cause, if you want to think of it that. But I do have a list of those who did sign and those who didn't sign. As far as funding for the church initially and the meeting house, originally the town and the church basically was treated as one. In New Hampshire, that changed in 1819 when they were separated. However, Barrington was different because in 1770, they had trouble calling a new pastor. And because there were people in the community, especially Quakers, that did not want to support a minister, they appealed to the state in 1770 to separate the finances of the church and the town. But the meeting house, of course, continued to be used as a joint venture, I guess you could say.
Sorry, so New Hampshire, so Barrington separated church and town finances before the state did? Is that what you're
Yes.
saying? Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm glad to learn that.
The Barrington Historical Society has agreed to be the sponsor of the project. And there also exists a 2019 survey for a housing development on Meeting House Road. And that survey includes the land and just gives us a clearer picture of it. The land is owned by the town of the Barrington of the former Meeting House. I'd say the site is approximately 1/3 of an acre. So I'd like to ask permission to do some archaeological work on the site when I've reached the funding level. I've requested funds from the Congregational Church. I'm working with the Barrington Historical Society about possible funding. I'm giving a presentation to the Stratford Historical Society this coming Saturday and requesting funds because Stratford was part of Barrington to 1820. And there is one small grant I found I could apply for. It would delay the project, but I would certainly have to have permission to do the work. Also, if the town happens to have any funds, I know I've had a conversation with Administrator McIver, sorry, McIver, and he says that, of course, funds are tight this year because a lot of things were voted down. But if there are any funds available, I'd be open to the project because I realize it's not that expensive of a project. And then there was a question about insurance and the independent archaeological consulting LSC said that Jacob Tumelaire said he would provide a certificate of insurance as needed with whatever entity or agency that is listed that the town prefers. So, questions?
So I have a question. So let's assume this project goes forward and then you have this valuable information about the history of that area. How do you propose to, share that information with the public?
Well, there's a couple of things with the independent archaeological consulting, I asked if there could be community involvement and was told that because it's on town property, it's a public site, that they would, they could answer questions to the people that were watching, and that if we had a few individuals that were interested in participating in the dig, they could participate in by signing a waiver. As far as sharing the information, it probably depends on what's found. He said that he tends not to make what's found public because you don't want people looting the site. So I think that I would just have to handle it carefully and see what is found. I mean, if what is found is turned over to the Historical Society, my guess is that they could make a display of some of the things that have been found, possibly at the historical room in the library. But this is just my guessing at this point of what. But yes, I'm not trying to hide it in. And
Well, it brought to mind that we have a project in town with some of our existing trails, and we're looking at doing interpretive signs of the history of some of the trails, and that this could be an interesting place to have an interpretive.
Yeah, I would be open to suggestions such as that.
Well, if we find some gold bars, I think there's some stuff we can pay off.
Oh, okay.
I'm glad to hear that you've reached out to UNH. Just my undergraduate degree is in archaeology, and some students, are always looking for an opportunity. So I would say keep that line of communication open. You may find a student that's looking for some undergraduate research opportunities, or maybe an enterprising grad student. It's probably not a big enough project for a grad student, but yeah, I would say keep that line of communication open for sure.
Yeah.
It sounds like a very interesting project, but yeah, at this time, we don't really have any excess funds, but I think in spirit, it seems really interesting. I would love to know what you find.
Yeah.
Yeah, if the select board is open and ready to make a motion to authorize the investigation on the project as presented, you could do that. Certainly, if you wanted to follow up with questions and delay that to the next meeting, you could. Looks like there's a question.
So because the land is owned currently by the town, if there are artifacts found, I assume we would receive a report out of what those were?
Yeah.
And that the town retains possession of those to decide what to do with. There was super neat Civil War button found along Route 9 the other day by a gentleman who was out just metal detecting with his son. So I would hope that we would utilize our Barrington Historic Group and make things available so that people understood what may have been found there. But
I mean,
I'm one of five, so maybe.
What I find, of course, is interesting is the stories, and like the button that was found. I mean, it's like, what's the story behind it?
Super interesting.
And I took, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if things are found, it would be better for your project if the town took possession of them.
My reading of it was, yes, it probably would be a little less expensive than them trying to figure out where to put them or something like that. So I would think, yes, that would be true.
Do any board members have any thoughts on whether we want to move forward on a vote tonight or table this to put on the old business for the next meeting?
I got a shovel and a good attitude. I'll make a motion to approve the archaeology at the Meeting House site.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, starting with Mr. Sakosha.
Sakosha, aye.
Debbie Elroy.
Answer guy.
Hardikoff, aye.
Smock-O, aye. So that sounds like you can move forward. Jim's gonna show up with a shovel. I have a trowel, so do it.
All right.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
very much.
And if you're interested in a letter of support for the grant, if you pursue that, please let me know. I'm sure that I have the select board support to
course.
author a letter of
Okay.
support.
That's wonderful.
Fact,
Thank you. Thank you
yes.
so much. And once I secure the funding and find dates and whatnot, I will
Be in
keep in
touch.
contact.
Give a call
Great.
to New Hampshire Charitable Foundation as well. You'd be absolutely floored at the different people that give funds at that level for the most unusual things you could ever imagine. And you
Wow.
may find yourself with a grant just for this.
Good idea.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we're going to move on to the public hearing on the the acceptance of the NHCD Clean Diesel Grant.
Select Board accepted the terms at the last meeting. We're required by RSA 3195B to hold a public hearing on any acceptance of unanticipated funds over $10,000. You'll just have to open public comment, and then
Okay.
you'll be ready to make a motion.
Okay, so this time I will open public comment. If you're online, please use the raise hand feature. If you're in the room, please approach the lectern. This is specific to the NHCD Clean Diesel Grant. I'm not seeing any. I will close public comment.
I move that we accept, excuse me, and expend the New Hampshire, whatever. diesel grant,
CD,
Clean diesel.
Clean Diesel Grant.
Clean diesel grant, in the amount of $61,197.76.
51. Request for modification to 51,197.76, sir.
Second,
All in favor, starting with
Sakosha, aye.
Debbie Elroy.
And sure guy.
Hardikoff, aye.
Smock-O, aye.
I mean, if they want to give us 61, by
I
all
know,
means.
they're not gonna,
take
but
it.
I would appreciate it if they would. Yeah, that's great.
5197.76 plus.
That's what you said, but okay.
You did.
We're going to move on now to the public hearing on the issuance of a building permit on Berry River Road, a private road for Michael Dumont, map 102, lot 25. Do we have an applicant present? Okay, come on up.
Don't need to make a presentation, but just be available for questions. This is recommended by the planning board for approval. The one nuance on this one is the culvert project that was proposed in partnership with the road association. Is the proposal for that is $7,736. 10% of the building permit is $8,000. So in keeping with the terms of the policy that the select board has, if you're interested in approving this, I'd recommend that you make a partial waiver for that 0.3%, just so we have a clean authorization and authorize the issuance of building permit.
Public comment.
Any questions for staff or the applicant?
No, I just wanted to clarify. My understanding is, this waiver makes sense because there is no way to essentially collect excess funds on this. They have to be directed at something.
Well, yeah, the policy is written, it's largely project driven. So, we want to work with property owners and road associations on private and class 6 roads to make substantive improvements to the road, incremental improvements. And there aren't a lot of, what would it be, $264 projects, improvement projects. This is a really good project that's supported by the road association. It's supported by the planning board. But I think for the select board's purpose, keeping it clean so that, the bar is 10%. That's what the policy says. And it's, advisable for the select board just to authorize a partial waiver for that small gap.
Yeah, all right, that makes sense to me.
Is this the road that already meets standard?
No.
Oh, this the next.
No, but I will say that at the rate we've been going, the incremental improvements on Berry River Road and Longshore Drive have been phenomenal. Just in my time here, the amount of widening and tree clearing and improvement, and even in some cases paving, it's a poster child for why this policy exists and the improvement of access down in that area.
Awesome. Are there any questions by the board for the applicant before I open public comment? Okay, at this time I will open public comment on the issuance of this building permit. And see.
I live next door.
Yep, come on up. You just either to the podium or to the table.
We're just curious as to what is being built there.
Yeah, so in the, certainly I encourage you to talk to your neighbor on the way out. The entire packet, that the building permit application and the review is available on the town's website. So you're able to see all of the specific details of what's proposed. This is unique because it's on a private road. That doesn't happen with every building permit application in Barrington. But in Barrington, or in the state of New Hampshire, any building permit on a Class 6 or private road, a road the town doesn't maintain, has to go before the planning board and the select board for authorization. So that's what this process is. The select board doesn't have to, but as a matter of policy, they notice direct abutters so that direct abutters have an opportunity to weigh in. The select board's review doesn't really have to do with what's built. So there's zoning rules that talk about setbacks and other requirements. That isn't the jurisdiction of this body. Certainly you'd be notified if there were any variances to a setback requirement or something like that. Really, the select board's review at this stage is just for access. It's for access for public safety and other purposes. And so there are a lot of other components of a building project, but the select board has this policy to make sure that there's good access to the site. And when there isn't perfect access, I'll say, the select board requires incremental improvements. So in this case, the applicant has proposed to install a failed drainage culvert on the road. So anybody that uses the road is able to benefit from the fact that there's improved drainage, and that's the type of incremental improvements that are necessary. But it's a tear down the existing and 2-bedroom structure, new home on the site.
And what's your name? Can we get your name for the record, ma'am? Can we just get you to state your name for the record?
Carrie Morales.
All right, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so at this time, I will close public comment and invite.
I would make a motion at this time, Madam Chair, to authorize a partial waiver for the remaining 0.3% for the Category 3 Option 2, and to authorize the issuance of a building permit for MAP 102, Lot 25 on Berry River Road as presented.
I'll second.
Second.
Perfect. All in favor?
Koshai.
Gabriella,
Nantrick, aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Samako, aye. All right, so that will be issued.
Terrific.
Happy building.
Thank you. Staff will be in touch.
All right, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Thanks for being here.
Okay, and finally, on our invited guests and public hearings calendar, we have issuance of a building permit on the Class 6 portion of Brooks Road for Benjamin Maynard and Kelly Butterworth, map 211, lot 9. And are they, oh, I see,
believe Mr.
online.
Maynard is available remotely. This is an application which is also recommended by staff and the planning board. I will note that the initial application was submitted with a waiver for the road improvement requirements, but in truth, the application should have come in as an option 1, Category 3 option 1, which means that the road meets the standards laid out in the policy. So a waiver isn't required. The planning board pointed that out at their review. So this is recommended for approval after public comment.
Okay, so before we go to public comment, any questions from the board?
Negative.
Okay, I will open public comment on the Brooks Road building permit. And seeing none, I will close public comment. And at this time, I would invite a motion.
I'll make a motion to authorize the issuance of building permit for map 211, lot 9 on Brooks Road as presented.
Second.
Koshai.
Gabriella,
Nantrick, aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Samako, aye. All right, it's been approved, and the staff will be in touch with you.
Thank you. Thanks for being available.
Okay, moving on to our consent agenda. Do we have any additional changes other than Vice Chair is recusing herself from item A?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Okay, I'll second.
Koshai.
Gabriella,
Nantrick, aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Samako, aye.
As amended, are you taking minutes off to vote on separately? Let's do that.
Yes.
Consent
Yeah,
agenda
we have to.
requires unanimous consent, so that was the consent agenda minus the minutes, and now a motion to approve the minutes.
I move we approve the meeting minutes from April 13th, 2026 as drafted.
Second.
Koshai.
Gabriella,
Nantrick, aye.
Hardikoff, recuse.
Samako, aye.
Perfect. Thank you.
Terms.
We're moving on to appointments for terms expiring in 2026.
Yes, thank you. You have Before you, an updated table for those appointments that we reviewed for discussion at the last meeting. This includes all of the Advisory Budget Committee members and a couple of other lingering appointments. And I would entertain, wait, do we have any first read on this, Tiffany?
Oh, goodness.
Select Board discussion. I believe this is the last.
We did this
Did we
first
make
time.
a selection on the CIP liaison? Is that
That's further
required?
down on the,
Okay.
that's further down.
Yep, so there's nobody on this table, there's nobody listed for discussion tonight. So we'll have one-off appointments that will come up through the year as we replace people and even folks that haven't reapplied. But in terms of our annual cycle, it's always a little bit drawn out. This is the last step to get the rest of the folks appointed.
Is there an individual that should be removed from CIP in this process as well?
You don't need to remove anybody
Okay,
if somebody
good.
resigns.
Excellent.
And
Thank
so I have an update on that after the select board makes an action here.
Okay, so at this time, I would take a motion for appointments.
Make a motion to appoint the individuals indicated with the select board vote date of May 11th, 2026, all of which were reviewed or discussed at your April 13th, 2026 meeting for the indicated terms on the 2026 terms expiring and reappointments sheet dated May 6th, 2026.
Second,
Koshai.
Capiello, aye.
Nantrick, aye.
Hardikoff, aye?
Simoco, aye.
Bless you.
Okay, we're moving on to staff report.
Terrific. May work anniversaries. Our town clerk, who's phenomenal,
Yeah.
started work in the town of Barrington 26 years ago this month.
Woo, Kim.
And she's a terrific asset. Our assistant library director, our children's librarian, Wendy Rowe,
Wendy,
started
Miss Wendy.
22 years ago in
Wow.
Barrington. It never ceases to amaze me how top-heavy our work anniversaries are month after month. And it's, 22, 26 years, that's a long time of providing service to the community. Not to be overshadowed by our newer hires. 8 years ago, we hired Charlie Kilgore and Richard Wentworth down at the transfer station. Lauren Hovel was hired in the town clerk's office 2 years ago this month. Joanne was hired as the digital services library assistant 2 years ago. Victoria Stanhope was hired 2 years ago as a library assistant. Our deputy chief, who
Was just here.
stepped out,
It was invisible. No.
was brought, I'll say, back home to Barrington 2 years ago. He was born and
Excellent.
raised here. And we hired our town planner, Ernie Krevling, a year ago this month. A great addition as well. Employee training spotlight. So Parks and Recreation Department, the assistant director, participated in the Summer Camp Summit, which is certainly very timely as they prepare for summer camp. Brittany Carr, program director, enrolled in the Outdoor Economy Academy through UNH Cooperative Extension. Really excited about that multi-series program. Obviously, our partners at UNH Cooperative Extension have invested a lot in the outdoor economy and the intersection of community and economic development. In our police department, our deputy chief, celebrating a work anniversary this month, attended the Academy for Chiefs for police chief training and resources. Henry Resnicek, who is a master patrol officer, participated in drug investigation training as well. Moving on to the elected representatives series, which has been very successful so far this year. We will be joined by Representative Michael Harrington at the next meeting, and Representative Heath Howard has RSVP'd for the July 13th meeting. And again, Representative Turcott is penciled in for the 10th because he will be retired by then. But if he's available earlier, he said that he will try to get here sooner if he can. Community Center ribbon cutting. I have a copy of the invitation in your printed packet. Is scheduled for June 2nd, 2026. CDFA, who administered the $1 million grant, invited the governor. She has yet to respond, but they are certainly interested in bringing in the folks that were instrumental in making the funding available for these critical projects. And so that will be 4 to 6 on the 2nd. There will be speakers. Our chair will be speaking. There'll be a ribbon cutting, which you'll all be asked to participate in if you're there, and refreshments and other
Super exciting.
viewings of the new community center, which is being painted today, which is just, there's no substitute for what a fresh coat of paint can do,
Inside or outside?
Outside.
What color?
the same color as the new wall.
Oh, wow.
Very cool.
Very nice.
Yep. Okay, Memorial Day Parade. So the American Legion, as they do, will be hosting a Memorial Day Parade. They have always celebrated the day on May 30th of tradition, and their parade will be on that Saturday, May 30th, starting at 6. They're also going to host a chicken barbecue in the afternoon and evening of the 30th, and they've invited select board members to participate. If you'd like, you can let them know, or you can let me know, and I can pass along the message. Parade starts at the Public Safety Building, lasts about 15 minutes. I know a few members have participated in the past.
Last year I was the only one. Please join.
I will be up in Maine.
I was there.
Wait, I was about to say.
I carried a flag.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
And
but you were up at the front, though. You weren't representing the select board.
I was joining you both.
She wore
You
two
were
hats.
You were commanding, so.
Alex, next time just text Damon.
Yeah, let him know you're there. Send him a selfie.
Yeah, I know you were there, just you weren't representing the select board. You had other important jobs to do that day.
Well, considering I accidentally dropped the second national anthem from the agenda as MC, I don't think I'll be asked back this year, so maybe I can walk with you.
I did it the year before. Does that count?
The second. Moving on, I've included just printed copies of the final approved calendars for your record, so you can get them up on your bulletin board. Again, that's 2027. The first quarter financial analysis is in your packet, all pretty vanilla. There's the one thing that I'd like to draw your attention to, just as a policy decision moving forward. If you look at page 2, you'll notice that one of these is not like the other, and that is our legal expenditures for 2026. So I explain in the narrative why that's the case. Really, the town has a very small legal budget, and year over year that has been sufficient. This year we have a couple of matters that have required additional legal expenditures beyond what we typically anticipate. One of those is the enforcement of the approvals for Meeting House Road, of which the community is aware of. It's important if we have rules that we make sure that folks follow them, and that costs money. So we're making an investment in getting that road fixed and finished. And so that has been a costly endeavor.
Meeting House?
Meeting House Road.
Request that.
You're muted.
Can we request that the builder that was responsible for bringing that road up to standard cover the legal fees?
We have.
Okay.
Yep, and so that's pending in the court system, and certainly that's a possibility.
Okay.
Certainly not something we want to count on, but
Understood.
certainly we will pursue every opportunity to recoup those costs. One of the other matters is we had an abatement appeal that we ended up needing an appraisal to defend, and so that became costly with the appraisal and working through that. Certainly, fortunately, we were able to resolve that at mediation before ongoing legal expenses, but that's something that had incurred costs. And the third one is defending the planning board's decision denying the subdivision process, denying the application, I should say, for development of the 500-acre Coop Farm property, which is still ongoing, but those are legal fees that we don't usually have, we don't anticipate. But again, we have rules, the planning board follows a process. We have a responsibility to defend the rules and the process that we follow in town.
Connor, is there any deadline for when that ruling may be released?
No. No. I followed up with the lawyer actually today on there was a hearing on the 14th on the motion to dismiss that the town filed in that case, and the judge has yet to order on that. It's still under advisement. I did ask if the judge had referenced during that hearing that there were similar cases that he was considering in a similar light. I'm not intimately familiar with those cases, but I did ask the town's attorney if he had ruled on any of those other cases, and he has not. He did rule on, there was a motion to dismiss under similar circumstances in Exeter that this judge granted a motion to dismiss on, and that was, they had filed a motion to reconsider, and this judge has ruled on that and not to reconsider the dismissal. So the judge is working, just no decision on that yet. So anyways, brass tacks on the financial analysis, we've already spent 127% of our budget in the first quarter of the year. What I recommend to the select board is that the select board reserve the remaining balance of the incident fund for the use of legal fees. Certainly we don't have that encumbered in any way, and we generally have, up to 3% surplus due to staff vacancies and other efficiencies that we found throughout the year. But I'd like not to rely on that, and I'd like the select board to consider just reserving that. You don't need to take an action tonight, but as we're looking at possible funding sources and considering things like a sponsorship for Relay for Life or this archaeological effort, that we don't look at that incident fund as available for use.
Understood.
Any other questions with the financial analysis before we move on?
Pretty clear. Thank you for doing that.
Great, of course. Forest management plan for Tamposi. It says proposal there. That's a relic. That does not belong. The forest management plan has been completed. That was issued by our terrific forester. I shared it with the select board. It is now available online for anybody that's interested. This is 1,600 acres of property owned by the town and has not, in the town's history of ownership, had a comprehensive forest management plan, and that has now been fixed. And we used proceeds from the Goodwill logging to pay for this forest management plan. And the plan has been circulated to the Conservation Commission and the Town Lands Committee and the Select Board. And we're working on, hopefully by the end of this month, scheduling a joint meeting for anybody that's interested, where the forester will come down, kind of go over the highlights of the plan and talk about some of the immediate action steps. And so certainly the Select Board will be invited to that when it's scheduled. I'll point out that, I won't get into any level of detail, but there is over $1 million of recommended management activities, $1 million of revenue in management activities over the life of this plan, 10 plus years. And that gives the town, I think, a lot of real opportunities to not only reinvest in the property, also generate some offsetting revenue. But one of the things early on is the property needs to be reblazed, the entire property. That was a core recommendation. That will be costly. But if we can do that in conjunction with the management activity, we don't have to come up with money in a budget to pay for something like that. The Conservation Commission through the Conservation Fund doesn't have to just fund that. Similarly, a Rabitat, 60 acres, was established on a grant a number of years ago, and that has grown up as, nature has a tendency to do. And it would cost, maybe $60,000 to reestablish that Rabitat. Which is actually really important for the ecology of this entire conservation property. We probably wouldn't appropriate $60,000 to fund this activity. But if we bundle that with a management activity where we're cutting in the trails and doing a landing area where the Rabitat, this clearing area, this transitional zone would be, there's real opportunities there. So these are some of the things that we might want to talk about as we're considering this management plan and how we execute on it. Last thing I'll point out is part of this management plan includes the 125 acres the town owns behind Allegiance Trucks. And so similarly, there's an opportunity there to reinvest some of these revenues in this property. We talk about the site work and we have the ongoing proposal that's forthcoming from the abutting property owner for a portion of that. But if we did clearing and site work on this property in conjunction with a management activity, we can further prepare that property for development. So a really exciting step forward for the town in how professionally we manage our conserved lands.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Moving on, I included a copy of the Capital Improvements Program Committee first meeting minutes. We met on Thursday last week as well, which is a great meeting. So this committee got up off the ground and is really gaining some momentum. There's a tour tentatively scheduled for next week, just lining up some of the logistics. And one of the things that came up at the last meeting on Thursday after these materials went out is one of the citizen members, Paul Hansen, resigned from the committee. He couldn't make the time work. Fortunately, when you get that many people together, it's hard to find a day and time that works for everybody. In this case, the majority ruled. But with his resignation, that was one of the full members. I asked the committee to consider how they might recommend the select board handle that. What they recommended is taking one of the advisory budget committee alternate members and bringing them up as a full member. We haven't received any additional public applications for appointment. We did continue advertising it beyond the April 13th kind of initial deadline. So Farida Shagazi has volunteered to transition from an alternate to a full member if the select board is interested. I think you could take that action without any additional steps. She was just appointed. But certainly if you'd like to pursue something different, we can. But that's the recommendation from the CIP committee.
Well, seems like a reasonable solution to me. We had originally had one more member of the public than we had originally planned to have, so I think that's fine.
So do you want a motion on that?
That would be great if you all are ready.
Motion to appoint Farida
Shagazi.
Pronounce that again?
Farida Shagazi.
Shagazi as a regular seated member of the CIP.
Second.
Go, Shay.
Capiello, aye.
Shrek, aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Marco, aye.
Thank you for that. The invasive species working, oh, sorry. My
A
apologies.
liaison to the capital improvement.
Oh, yes,
Committee.
we should do that.
Never officially made that happen.
We never did do
Are
that.
you interested? 'Cause
I
know you
have
saved it.
attended 2 of the meetings. I'm comfortable taking that on unless someone else is riveted by that work.
Sounds good.
Okay, so you shall be our liaison.
By order of the chair.
I need a gavel.
I have one at home if you would like it.
Thank you.
Possible vision.
The invasive species working group is working its way off the ground. At the time of issuing this report, I'd identified 14 stakeholders from 5 lakes and ponds. That is now 15 over 6 lakes and ponds, and also the Conservation Commission as a stakeholder group. So the introductory email actually went out today, working to schedule a meeting at the end of this month, and there's one date option in June. There's a doodle poll for that.
Are we considering inviting the city of Rochester to participate in any way in that, given their investment in Round Pond?
No.
Okay.
Would you like us to?
I was thinking of the olive branch, since we are not currently people who are considered when we're talking about waste management. I thought it might be a way to create a working relationship, but that is up to you of what you think of that.
So nothing against the city of Rochester. I think that their involvement as a property owner around 75% of the shore of Round Pond probably isn't super topical to the threat of invasive species. Round Pond is closed to public access by 1830s legislation, as is the Rochester Reservoir, of which the part of that is in Barrington. So I can certainly reach out to them to see if they feel that Round Pond is in danger of the introduction of invasive species, and if they'd like to participate. But I think the research is pretty obvious that the threat of invasive species comes from public access.
Okay.
And that's not a problem that they have.
And there's the water flow from that pond does not enter into any of our other water systems.
Well, it does. I mean, the Barry River is the source water for Round Pond, which is a storage tank fed by gravity. So they draw out of the Barry River, they fill Round Pond, and then they, by gravity, fill the Rochester Reservoir from Round Pond. So, I mean, I don't think in the normal course of their utilization of that water system, the water from Round Pond is entering any of Barrington waterways. I mean, that's their storage tank on
That was my
purpose.
thought.
Yeah.
Okay. Understood.
It may be the other way around. Our water might Bring stuff.
Or water from the Berry River.
Right.
Understood. Okay.
They might be interested.
You would be interested in attending?
The select board does not
No,
need
that's what you said.
a liaison.
Okay.
And I have marketed this working group as a self-governed working group that I will get off the ground, but they will elect a chair and a vice chair and determine membership and have a secretary that does minutes. And so does the select board want to have a liaison to this working group?
Do you live on the water?
Technically, yes.
Oh.
Well,
So I was thinking if they would like to have a liaison, I would be happy to do it. I don't live on a pond or a lake. I live on a river, but yes.
I think you're the only one of us that-
And it did say, Article 32 did say water body.
Yeah. So, and I'm already the liaison to the Conservation Commission, so it kind of, there are some
makes sense
overlap.
with
So
the
I think
overlap.
that makes sense if, so I would be happy to do that.
I think that's a great idea.
That's a great idea.
And I will share some exciting news. I'd reach out to the state to see what resources they had to help get the group off the ground. And the new limnologist for the state, the exotic
That word again.
What is
limnologist,
and what is the
Which is a
definition of that
Ologist
profession?
of what?
exotic species.
Okay.
She's the program coordinator, Georgia Bunnell, Bunnell. She, I believe, replaced Amy Smagula, who we had worked with before. Anyways, she lives in Barrington on Mendham's Pond. And she said, if nobody has volunteered to represent Mendham's Pond, I'd love to participate. And I think this was a 419 today email. So we
Love an
like
expert.
419 Monday emails. So that's promising.
Very promising.
The chair has appointed herself as the liaison.
Yeah.
Yes.
Terrific. I'll add you to the scheduling email.
Okay.
So you can participate in the doodle poll. I think it'll be just as difficult to get those 16 schedules to align with each other, but we will try.
We'll do what we can.
Yes. Okay, training opportunities are listed in there for your reference.
Excellent. All right, Municipal Office Administrator Cottle.
Thank you. For wet signatures tonight, we have a poll attachment application for chair. 2 proclamations that I'll ask each of you to sign before you leave tonight. And then later this week, via DocuSign, we'll have 8 oaths that were just approved. And chair, you'll have 2 Class 6 private road agreements come through at some point today. That's it.
All right, so moving on to old business.
Signage.
So exciting.
Yes, we met with the recommended business owner of Paquette Signs, we being the sign committee this afternoon. He came down to Barrington, met with us for a little over an hour, and the sign committee continues with their recommendation of forging a partnership. We talked all things signs. This business owner, Roy Whitaker, owns 3 sign companies, Lincoln Sign Company, Littleton Sign Company, and Paquette Signs. Mostly that is through business growth and acquisition of these other companies, these other sign companies. He's done a tremendous amount of work, municipal work. He's done work, all of the Franconia notch signs for the state of New Hampshire. He's done all of those signs, businesses in the area. My opinion, which is shared by the committee, is that he's very qualified to be our subject matter expert. And so what this is a partnership proposal. So, we wanted to find the right partner and be able to just use that partner anytime we had sign needs without going through a competitive process each time. And so the recommendation from the committee is to award that partnership to Roy Whitaker of Paquette Signs.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, I would happily make a motion to enter into a partnership with Paquette Signs of Center Harbor, New Hampshire for the upcoming sign-related projects in Barrington pursuant to the terms of the request for qualifications advertised on March 26, 2026.
I'll second.
Kosha.
Capello, aye.
And Chuck, aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Mako, aye. Okay, and then the select board meeting calendar, I can actually talk about this one.
Please.
So I will, I will be out of the country on October 19th, which is a meeting day. But we also have kind of a stacked calendar at the end of the year, including 3 meetings in November. So rather than just missing a meeting, Connor and I were talking about maybe moving that meeting back a week to October 26th, and then canceling the November 2nd meeting and just meeting November 16th and 30th. So instead of 3 times in November, we'd meet twice, and we'd move the October 19th meeting back a week.
That is the week of New Hampshire Municipal Association training,
Oh.
correct? No, that's
Oh,
fine. It's not
training.
on that day, but.
Yeah.
We
just
go over
later
that one
that
more
week.
time, we
Yeah.
got the calendar up now.
later that week.
Yep, so the proposal is to take the October 19th meeting and move it 1 week later to October 26th, and then eliminate the November 2nd meeting, which would be that next week. So the NHMA conference starts on Wednesday. It's Wednesday and Thursday, 2-day conference, the 28th and 29th.
Okay.
And then move the 19th to the 26th?
That's the proposal for select board consideration.
We thinking, yeah,
Yeah,
It's okay with me.
okay with me.
it's Koshai.
Sounds reasonable.
It sounds like we can all do it.
Motion to modify the meeting date calendar.
Second,
Great.
All in favor?
Koshai.
Gabrielle, aye.
Sure, guy.
Samako, aye. Thank you.
Punchy.
I'll update those calendars and
Get
send
through this,
copies out,
guys.
and I'll get you printed
More
copies of the
complex
next
than it
meeting.
needed to be.
I will point out, and the chair and I talked about this, but that October 26th meeting, that will be the target for not only the initial budget presentation, which we do that time every year, but the bulk of that meeting will likely be a presentation and public hearing from the Capital Improvement Program Committee to go over their recommendations. And so that will be the public hearing prior to adoption, essentially, of the Capital Improvement Program. And then I have tentatively scheduled the CIP committee to meet with the Budget Committee on the 28th to review recommendations for funding in 2027, so that can all happen, right there at the beginning of the process. And so I think that flows nicely with how the rest of our annual calendar works. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have anything under new business.
Nor do I.
Okay, then moving on to select board member report outs and concerns, starting with Jim.
Parks and Rec, they had the fishing derby this weekend. A little over 200 fish were in that pond. It was some hard fishing, that's for sure, but there was still a lot of fun had. The ribbon cutting for the community center is the 2nd from 4 to 6. Also, summer soccer is starting up soon, and they have some new programs cooking over there, like the Golden Hour, which they've added within the last 2 weeks. My next MLB meeting, I believe, is on the 20th.
Yes.
And that's all I got for you right now.
Okay, awesome.
All right, we did not have a planning board meeting, which is the first time that I can recall that we had a meeting canceled, so there were no applications before us. We did have a history and trails meeting, so kind of moving along on researching history on our selected town trails. We'll be very excited to get some feedback from the sign committee or from the contract about what's going to be the cost of the interpretive signs. We're assuming these are going to be very manageable and modest costs, so we want to make sure that's the case. And attended 2 New Hampshire Municipal Association legislative meetings, and there will be an all-day legislative policy conference on September 11th. And that's it.
On meeting?
And then, as that approaches, the select board will nominate and decide the voting delegate for Barrington. Every community gets a voting delegate. Certainly, as Joyce has participated in the process, she would be a shoo-in. I've done it when select board members haven't been available, and we've had the chair do it. So it's certainly, but give that some thought. We'll decide that.
Yeah, I already checked that out today. I do have a conflict with that. That is the 1 week of the rest of the year I'm away for the family reunion. So if someone else could participate, that would be great.
Great. Okay.
Closer, we can figure that out. For
Yes.
Sure.
Yep. I'll get that on the agenda over the summer.
Perfect.
Library. Matt, nothing really to report. Transfer station, the hazardous waste Day is Saturday, 8:30 to 12:30 at Gonick. So that's the one time a year do that, so remember. That's it for I.
Okay. I'm going to let our chairperson report out on ZBA because, you know, my family was expanding that week and I was wrestling a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, while the parents were birthing a newborn. And school board got canceled, and CIP, fascinating group, super qualified, interesting people in it. The one, I think, thing to note is that when they're looking at CIP, there was a recommendation from the group to move from 10,000 10 years to 25,000 10 years after conducting a study of 9 other like-size communities. So their recommendation was items that were 25,000 in value and had 10 years of life expectancy be part of your CIP. But again, I think that gets presented to you to decide later on. Yes, or planning board to decide later on. But that was one big piece of it. And yeah, tours and making videos while on tours so that understanding the infrastructure needs are going to be recorded. And if anyone's absent, they'll be able to watch the tours. But above and beyond that, it can also be used to explain to the public when we're talking about CIP items, what specifically the needs are based upon those videos. I think that's it.
Yeah, I thought the minutes were very interesting about how unlikely it is to be able to use roads as part of
Impact fees.
Yeah, the impact fees.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so the Conservation Commission approved the Richardson Pond Dam design. It passed unanimously. And for the zoning board, there were 2 cases. Both were for variances, both were approved. Interestingly, one was along Route 4, which was for building a residential structure within 500 feet of the center line, but it was replacing a previous residential structure that predated that zoning ordinance that had been damaged by a tree falling on it. So, both were approved and without much fanfare. So.
And one case was continued.
One case was continued, which will be heard next Wednesday. That is the Holiday Lakeshore Drive case for which we had a site walk previously. So, okay, we'll move on to our second public comment. At this time, I will open public comment for the second session. There is nobody in the meeting room other than the board and staff, and nobody online raising their hand. So at this time, I will close public comment. And I do not believe we have any need for non-public tonight.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Koshai.
Capiello, aye.
Hanchard, aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Samako, aye. Adjourned as